And a very good morning to you. Time to welcome you now to Voices. We do apologize for the late start of the program today. It's entirely my fault, and I do apologize to you. Our telephone numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We are live on Voices on WinFM 98.9. And on Voices, we look forward to hearing from you, hearing your thoughts and your recommendations, your insights, and of course, your evaluations of things that are important locally, regionally, and internationally. What's on your mind? Give us a call. Let's have a conversation. I'm the host for today's program, Clive Backus. And we go straight to the phone lines. We have our first caller. Call you live and on the air, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Backus. How are you?
I'm doing fine this morning. How are you doing?
I'm blessed. Nice to know about you back in the hot seat.
You're not sorry.
My question is to you. What about the Caribbean link-up?
Yes, the Caribbean Link Up, we're having a review of that, and I'll tell you some more when I speak to you again tomorrow.
And also Tuesday, the Talking Trash.
Yes, well, what we're doing with Talking Trash, we're looking to see if we have a different time for that. So we're having discussions about that as well. So hopefully we're going to move it to a different time in the morning. We have a new morning show.
I really do enjoy that one.
Yes, and we want to make sure that it stays lively and it has a nice vibe to it. So we're looking to make some changes to offer you an exciting program lineup for you to keep you happy. We want to be fresh.
Okay,
so look out.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes, indeed. Our numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Well, elections in Anguilla yesterday. A new government is in office today. Results in, new government in place. We'll play an interview we had just moments ago with Keith Stonegraves. Keith Stonegraves, a celebrated journalist and broadcaster who is the program manager of Radio Anguilla. We'll have that for you in just a bit. But in the meantime, our phone lines are open, and of course, we have an open mic today. You can call in with any questions you have for WinFM or any questions you want to raise with officials or anyone in your community, and we look forward to your calls. Well, just a few moments ago, we spoke to Keith Stonegraves, who is the program manager of Radio Anguilla, and asked him about the elections of yesterday.
Well, elections have seen the ushering in of a new government, the Opposition Anguilla Progressive Movement, being successful in Monday's general election, winning 7 of the 11 electoral seats in the Anguilla House of Assembly. The biggest shock or defeat, if you like, of the evening was the incumbent premier, Victor Banks, losing to a 27-year-old former Miss UK and Miss World contestant, Deanne Kentish Rogers. Mr. Banks, having served in government parliament for over 40 years, suffering a shocking defeat, not unexpected given the conditions of this election cycle, but that by far was the most surprise result of the evening. We now have the Anguilla Progressive Movement headed by Dr. Lorenzo Webster, a top medical professional who spent quite a bit of time in the United States, in Florida to be more specific. He's now taken over the radio of government here in Anguilla. So the APM, the Anguilla Progressive Movement, winning 4 of the district seats and 3 seats from the island-wide candidates list. So this year we had a change in the electoral format where you had the districts, the 7 electoral constituencies, and for the first time going into the all-island constituencies where 4 candidates were vying for those 4 positions in an expanded Anguilla House of Assembly. Previously 7 seats in Anguilla House of Assembly. That has now been expanded to 11 members, and in fact Anguilla will now have 5 ministers in government under this new system. They've done away with the nominated members, an archaic, old-fashioned style of governance that has been done away with, and everyone that participates in house activities are now elected officials sitting in the Anguilla House of Assembly.
So, what were some of the election issues, and how were the polls conducted with the COVID-19 realities?
Well, the main issues for this election certainly jobs, the economy, and some promises that were made by the outgoing Anguilla United Front administration on the outgoing Premier Victor Banks. They'd had a 15-point program when they came in 2015, and the populace here felt that they did not keep any of those promises to turn around the economy, job creation. Added to that, we had Hurricane Irma in 2017. They got some aid money from the British government, which many felt they should use long before the election of 2020. Those funds were sort of held back. It was the feeling of many persons, right, to boost their chances in the election. Added to that, you had COVID-19 coming on into the picture, where the ports were closed and still remain closed. The major hotel, Anguilla is heavily dependent on the hotel sector. All the major hotels have been closed, a number are out of work. So that just added to the misery of the people. There was also the question of secrecy. There was some sense, some persons also accused the government of corrupt practices, one of which, and another particular area of concern for many residents here had to do with Hurricane Irma, when some $800,000 was spent in rentals for the ministers of government during that time, and the outgoing government was not able to live down that. That was certainly thrown around throughout the campaign program. But certainly the economy and job creation was a big factor in all of this, with a number of persons out of work. Stimulus package that they would have expected has been very small or very minuscule, and number of school leavers coming out as well. That didn't help the cause of the government. But generally the economy was the main cry, or lack of an economy, lack of any activity, economic activity in the Anguillan society, and that did not play well for the outgoing government. The opposition seized on that, and they campaigned quite heavily on that, the state of the economy.
Now, what was the message of the winning party, and how did they campaign?
Well, the message now coming from the new government, the Anguilla Progressive Movement, is one, firstly, of trying to unify, because the campaign was quite vigorous campaign, a lot of ritualic language used, some of it sometimes very tense and terse, created quite a bit of friction. There was clear parts made. So that the first thing would be the healing of the people, and of course job creation. One of the areas that the new administration says it will be focusing on is renewable energy. That has now become a catchword here in Anguilla, getting away, quietly weaning off the fossil fuel and getting into wind and solar. So they're certainly looking at that as one of the key drivers of the economy, getting the small business sector up and running. Just recently, the outgoing administration signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the UK government, where they received $100 million to help with the COVID emergency package. So certainly that will come into good effect. They're also looking at some foreign direct investment. The new leader, Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster, says he will use his contacts in the United States to get some investments onshore. He says he has very good contacts in very high places in the United States, where he has lived and practiced medicine for quite some time. So he'll be tapping into that as well. But the real thing here for them, for the new government, is getting the economy going, getting some jobs going, so people can get back into the productive sector once again. It's going to be tight with the borders, as I said, still closed, and they're going to be looking at ways now to reopen safely and to get the hotel sector back up. But that is certainly dependent on external factors, whether or not tourists in the United States, where they predominantly, most of the tourists who come from, are prepared to travel or willing and ready to travel to these shores anytime soon. So it's going to be a tough time for the new administration, but they feel they're very capable, and the people that they have in their lineup are quite, they feel they're up to the task and capable.
How many people were on the voters list, and what was the turnout like?
The voters list, just over 11,000 people were registered to vote. I haven't seen the official data, but it would appear that the turnout was quite high. The parties, both the two political parties, the main parties, they were pushing that you vote for all their candidates, as opposed to splitting, because there were a number of independent candidates, a lot of new people, young people coming onto the scene, with the fact that you have the all-island sort of system, which has opened up the playing field, and more young persons have now entered the political arena. So with that, the two political parties, throughout their campaign, encourage their supporters to vote for the entire slate, not to split the votes, but to vote for a slate. They were very, very adamant that would create confusion. They wanted to avoid at all costs anything of a coalition government, and the problems associated and comes sometimes with the coalition government. So they wanted their supporters to vote for the slate. It turned out that in fact worked for the incoming government, the Anguilla Progressive Movement. They campaigned strongly on that, to vote for all five. Their symbol was the boat. So the symbol was vote, 5 votes, 5 votes. The outgoing government, they too were saying to vote for all our 5, the district candidate plus the 4 at-large candidates. They were using that theme as well. The independent candidates, surprisingly, did not fare as well. There was a lot of talk about a number of the independent candidates, whether they could have come higher up in the field, but as it turned out, that did not happen, clearly indicating that the supporters from both parties took the advice to vote strictly along party lines.
And can you remind our listeners about the system that obtains in Anguilla in terms of governance? How is it structured in terms of, is it an assembly?
Yeah, the Anguilla House of Assembly previously there were 7 electoral seats. With the expanded system that's now in place, the all-island or at-large voting system, that has been expanded to 11. Previously, they had 2 nominated members. That has been done away with the amendment to the Anguilla Constitution and some electoral reforms that have taken place over the last 2 years. So that will now come into play in this new election cycle. So the House of Assembly will comprise 11 elected representatives. There will be no longer any nominated members sitting in the House. The only members that will be in the ex-officio will be the Attorney General and the Deputy Governor. So all the main officials in the House would be elected. Those are persons that have been elected to serve in the House, as opposed to the nominated system, which existed for a very long time. So that is one of the positives and one of the changes that have been made to the whole structure of the Anguilla House of Assembly.
And finally, Keith, my understanding is that you handed out suffrage in your elections in 1972 being your first elections. Now in 2020, I'm hearing that you're using electronic voting machines and a master computer. Can you give us some details?
Yes, that was a new feature where Anguilla joined the British Virgin Islands and also Anguilla joining the British Virgin Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands in using the electronic tabulation machine for the very first time. That certainly helped to speed up the process of vote counting after the ballots were cast, and really added a new feature. The days were gone where you would be holding up the ballots and counting 1, 2, 3. Everything was gone. Everything was loaded into the main computer. So it came on a media stick, the stick was put into the mainframe computer, and then all the results would come up automatically on screen. So that eased the process, speeded up the process significantly. For example, on Monday night, all the results were in by 10:30. Gone are the days where you had to be waiting well into the early hours of the morning or even the next day. Even with some 3 recounts, we had 3 recounts last night in District 2, District 3, and District 7. There were 3 recounts. That also took place, and the folks were out of the legislative chamber by 11:15. So it's the new process of using the electronic tabulating machines has certainly been a much needed and created a very nice feature of the election machinery going forward here. But they were being used for the very first time also, not for the first time, but because of COVID, the international observers that were requested to come in could not come in, even though they're doing some work remotely, nonetheless, on the legal and legislative side of the election structure here in Anguilla. You had a team of local observers comprising members of the Anguilla Christian Council and the Anguilla Evangelical Association, headed by Reverend Dr. Wycherley Gums. And they've been asked to produce a report 1 month after the election here. So that report will be prepared and submitted to the authorities, the Governor Tim Foy, and the Governor Foy promised that report will in fact be made public.
Well, that's Keith Stonegraves, Program Manager of Radio Anguilla, speaking to Win FM this morning. Keith, of course, a veteran broadcaster, celebrated journalist in his own right, and giving us a synopsis of the elections in Anguilla. Well, we're on St. Kitts and Nevis at 22 minutes after 11 o'clock. We're in Voices, and Voices comes your way. Compliments Rams Trading and Flow. We have an open mic today, so there you had it, your update on the elections in Anguilla, some insight offered from an expert on the ground, Keith Stonegraves. I do hope that you find that information useful. If you have any comments to make, if you're in Anguilla and you want to offer us a comment on the elections, you're in St. Kitts and you want to speak about that as well, or any other issue, our phone lines are open.
If you have one, hold it up and say, must the brother colors in my life. Refreshing and nice, and I drink that what we like. But stand you full of vibes, living for the color. And I'm black and white, we do what we like. We live to enjoy life. Buster, pour it up. Different flavor, load it up. If you have one, hold it up and say, must the brother colors in my life.
Flow's new combo plan, the people's plan.
Combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your flow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, flow, come boom.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause it flow combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Flow got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your flow.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
"24 minutes after the hour of 11 o'clock, you're listening to Win FM, www.winnfm.com. And over the weekend, conversations about Liat again. Liat, very much in the news. We've had heads of government in the Caribbean weighing in on Liat. Gaston Brown, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, on Point FM on Saturday, got the ball rolling as far as some of us are concerned. It was the first time we heard about the discussions, saying that, Liat really was in a very bad financial state and would have to be rolled up, or as you put it, collapsed. And that announcement came just a few days after Liat announced that it was going to look at its scheduling but will not resume passenger service until the 15th of July based on what was happening with COVID-19. Not a lot of people traveling, closed borders, and all manner of things. But Liat was interested in repatriating citizens if member governments or if governments in the Caribbean were willing to have discussions about that. And then on Saturday, speaking on Point FM in Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Brown was speaking about the realities of Antigua and Barbuda in the context of a drying up of revenue. He suggested that revenue in Antigua and Barbuda had decreased by 50% and borders had to reopen. There were some concerns about a spike in Antigua and Barbuda, 39 new cases after the borders opened in the 4th of June. And he was talking about the fact that, look, not only Antigua and Barbuda, but other countries and other entities were having a difficult time. And in that conversation, he got to talking about Liat. And we play for you now. As the phone lines are pretty quiet, we play for you right now an excerpt from that conversation on Point FM with the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Gaston Brown.
But, even with 50% of your revenue, a revenue loss of 50%, that is still a crisis.
Still a crisis?
Absolutely. And too,
Go ahead.
Even the Bank of England announced that if it wasn't for their intervention in the UK economy, the UK economy would have literally bankrupted. They had to print more money and literally, save the UK economy. And that's an economy with trillions of dollars in value, with a lot of resources. So I can imagine all of the countries within the region, these small island states, you can imagine how vulnerable they are. And that as this crisis protracts, that it's going to create some fundamental economic problems for us. And the problems are not limited, or the impact of the problems would not be limited just to central governments. So you'll find, for example, that private institutions will be affected as well. Even regional institutions, to include Liat, will be affected. In fact, the survivability of Liat is questionable. From all indications, Liat is likely to be liquidated, Liat 1974 Limited. In fact, there will be a shareholder, an annual general meeting of the shareholders to determine the fate of Liat. Now, Antigua and Barbuda's position is that whereas we recognize that the 4 shareholding governments cannot carry Liat presently, because what would have happened, COVID would have actually, increased the losses exponentially. So whereas in all of 2019, Liat made a loss of about 12 million EC, and that was within the means of the government to subsidize. You would have found since COVID and the fact that the planes have been grounded, they have to pay the lease payments, and they're not getting any revenue, plus there's some other fixed costs that they have to pay, even if they don't operate. They have to maintain staff as well, to maintain the planes and so on, and keep some level of administration going. The losses would have increased exponentially, which means that Liat, which was always in a very precarious position, is literally now inviable. And a decision will have to be made, potentially to collapse it, and to then maybe the countries within the region have to come together to form a new entity, because I cannot see the region going without any form of connectivity. We can't have an integration movement and we can't connect people. I mean, connecting people is critical to the integration movement. But this new entity will require full cooperation of all, full commitment. Clearly, we're going to have to put cash in. The governments will have to capitalize the new entity. They'll also have to get private sector participation so that we have a mixture of public and private capital, probably to have it operated by private entities. But again, what I'm hoping that we do not have going forward with a new entity is any squabble over the location of the headquarters. At the end of the day, the only service that Antigua and Barbuda has enjoyed, and let's say service of consequence within CARICOM, is LIAT. And this has been the case for several decades. So I just hope that we're not going to have countries within the region opportunistically fighting us to get the headquarters in their country to displace Antigua and Barbuda. Because my understanding of CARICOM and even the OECS is that there should be shared benefits. You know, the benefits of these integration movements should be spread across the countries. And I hope that, you know, these individuals who may have certain urges and aspirations to fight Antigua and Barbuda for the headquarters of a new entity, that they will understand that that is an extremely inequitable position which Antigua and Barbuda would resist. Now, we also have the view here in Antigua and Barbuda, my cabinet, that in as much as we may have to collapse the existing entity because it is inviable, that the formation of a new entity has to be done as quickly as possible. Back in 1974, when LIAT was collapsed, my understanding is that it took a day to start the operations of a new entity. Now, it may be a little more difficult to get it done maybe within 24 hours. And I do understand that there are a number of stakeholders that we have to satisfy, especially creditors. And I believe that we can do a workout with the various creditors and to literally get some arrangement in which they can accept that, look, we're not conveniently closing LIAT 1974 Limited. It just cannot go, well, the governments cannot go any further with it. And these creditors have to understand that, and these creditors also include the staff of LIAT, that there will have to be some level of cooperation to include possibly some haircuts on their liabilities in order to facilitate the creation of a new viable and sustainable entity. And let me make the point here too, that LIAT does not have sufficient assets in which it could satisfy the requirements, or let's say the claims of most of its creditors, to include the staff at LIAT. So LIAT only owns 3 planes, and those 3 planes are charged to the Caribbean Development Bank. So clearly they have a superior claim, and after they would have covered their claim, there will be hardly any assets available to liquidate severance and other liabilities to staff and other creditors. So there has to be a negotiated position. I mean, the government's not going to be bandits and just walk away from the staff. There will have to be some form of compassionate payment to assist them. But they have to understand that they are legally vulnerable and that they have to look at the bigger picture and to cooperate, not to become litigious and to prevent the creation of, let's say, a new LIAT. I want to call it a new LIAT. Let me make the point here too. We should not be running away from the name LIAT. LIAT is a Caribbean institution built by Caribbean people, of which we should be proud. Many institutions within the US, within the aviation industry, even including American Airlines, they've gone belly up many times over. They never discontinued the name American Airlines. Americans are proud to support American Airlines. But whereas they have their Chapter 11 protection, we don't have that in our laws. And that is why you need this level of creditor cooperation in order to ensure that we can form a new entity. And let's face it, it's going to be a right-sized entity. You're going to have significant job losses. There's no doubt about it, that hundreds of people are going to lose their work. It is inescapable. But if you can have a new entity that is scaled down, that is viable, that is efficient, that can meet the connectivity needs of the Caribbean people, then clearly that has to be the option that we pursue. And I know legally that you cannot be conveniently talking about a new entity while you wind up an existing one. But I believe that creditors can understand the circumstances. Let us be straightforward with them. Let them know what we're trying to achieve here. And that in essence, we need a cooperation of all. We need a cooperation of creditors to include the staff at LIAT. Because If they don't cooperate and a new entity is formed, then they're going to lose everything. Now, the other issue I want to state here too, that if at the level of the various member states that we do not cooperate and to ensure that there's no displacement going forward, especially displacement of Antigua and Barbuda's aviation industry, then what you may end up with is every single country within the Caribbean starting its own airline, at least within the OECS, starting its own airline, and then all of them will fail. But you see, it's an opportunity for us to come together and have a better LIAT, a new LIAT, in which we all have a policy of shared benefit and shared burden, and not to be squabbling as to who should have the headquarters. I mean, all the expertise are here, all the pilots and so on, most of them, they're here, the engineers, and I don't see why, we should be trying to reinvent the wheel. Yes, we have to make the new entity far more efficient and to be, more disciplined in the management of the new entity, and to make sure we don't end up in a situation in which we have to, have a bloated LIAT again. I mean, so clearly, the mistakes of the past, we have to avoid those. But let us not forget too that the airline industry is not an easy industry. It's capital intensive, and even with the best of management, sometimes you end up making losses. But I think that the LIAT brand ought to be maintained. You can right-size LIAT, but don't kill it. And I think that with the cooperation of creditors, that we can reason with them, do a workout situation, even if they have to take a haircut, it's inescapable. In fact, the old LIAT, when it is wound up, clearly, a number of creditors may not get paid. And that is just company law. That is a risk you take when you do business. But I believe that in many instances that there could be some workout situation, and you're better off having a new sustainable entity that you can do business with than to literally have, a collapsed entity in which you will get no value, and then you don't have anything substituting the space, and maybe leaving a vacuum for some form of, let's say, extra regional entity to come to the Caribbean and fill. That is one of the potential risks that we run if we do not move quickly to create a new LIAT. And I say new LIAT, maybe LIAT 2020 Limited, because I can tell you Antigua and Barbuda is not running away from the name LIAT. It's an institution that we have sustained, yes, with a lot of difficulties for several decades. It's the Caribbean brand. It's the Caribbean People's brand, the Caribbean People's Airline. And I hope that with the cooperation of creditors, when the AGM would have been called and, assuming they're going to liquidate the company, which I suspect that is what's going to happen. And I'm not saying definitively that is the case. I don't want to preempt the AGM, but I think I can at least say how I feel about it and what I think will happen. And on that basis, let us move quickly to reestablish a new, viable, and sustainable LIAT.
Okay. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, as far as I can recall, a meeting was supposed to be held today. Is this the same meeting you're speaking about when you speak about the AGM?
No.
AGM?
It has to be a meeting of all of the shareholders of LIAT. I believe there may be probably over 20 shareholders. They all have to come together and decide the fate of LIAT.
Now, in the past, I've heard about, I think it was Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves who first spoke about LIAT, the survivability of LIAT, and how we would have gone about it, and even suggested to some extent, if I'm correct, that maybe LIAT should become insolvent. One of the things that I notice here, Mr. Prime Minister, is that nothing at all can be done in this case. For example, what about cutting unprofitable routes?
All those are decisions that will have to be made for the new entity, as well as introduction of a minimum revenue guarantee. Those are things that obviously the new entity will have to pursue. And if, for example, we're going to run a low-cost airline, clearly some of those salaries and wages that LIAT paid in the past, management write-down, those have to be significantly reduced. The number of staff will have to be significantly reduced. Procurement will have to be far more efficient than it would have been any time in the past. It just has to be a lean organization that would be positioned to serve the connectivity needs of the people of the region. And I am of the view that we have the capacity so to do, and we should see COVID as a challenge to get it right, to build a sustaining LIAT, instead of trying to just run away from the commitment. And let's face it, the integration movement comes at a cost. And one of the costs that is inescapable is to sustain air connectivity among the member states. And let me make the point here too. If we leave that void and we end up having an extra-regional carrier, when they start to request the MRGs, you think you'll have a choice? We've seen that already in terms of the extra-regional airlines moving people. The most recent one was the demand that was made by Virgin Atlantic for all of us to pay millions of dollars US, between $2 and $3 million US a piece, in order to get flights out of the United Kingdom. So I just want to caution my colleagues within the region against any knee-jerk reaction to think that we can just leave, let's say, a vacuum for others to fill. And let me make the point here too. Those who think that the little rinky-dinky airlines within the region can substitute LIAT, I don't subscribe to that notion. So let us not squabble over those issues. Let us understand that, yes, we have a good brand, a great brand in LIAT. And the thing about it too is that LIAT has some routes rights that I'm pretty sure that if we're able to do a LIAT 2020 limited, and we can transfer those routes rights and so on, and the brand having come to some agreement with the creditors, that those would be very beneficial than starting from scratch. And as I said, the risk you're running is that you may find that some member states within CARICOM may want to take the decision that, they want to take over LIAT, they want the routes rights of LIAT. Then a country like Antigua and Barbuda will resist it. And then what will happen, you have a squabble, and then we all end up having national airlines, and then we all have national airlines that will make losses, because you see the market within the region is so small that it can only sustain one efficient airline. It cannot support national airlines by every country. And if already 4 countries within Eastern Caribbean and Barbados are unable to carry the weight of LIAT, which I would accept that is just top heavy, why would anyone think that they can carry the weight of a regional airline alone? So again, as I said, I hope that there will be no form of opportunism or let's say opportunistic behavior in which individuals may want to literally fight Antigua and Barbuda to get the headquarters, because at the end of the day, we are not interfering with any other member state to get the headquarters of any other organization. So, for example, we're not asking St. Lucia to send us to OECS. We're not asking St. Kitts to let the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank come, domicile here. And the plethora of regional institutions that are domiciled in Barbados, we're not asking for none of them, because we understand that you have to share the benefits of the integration movement. The only thing that we export literally is aviation services. Everything else we import. Trinidad and Tobago is like the supermarket for Antigua and Barbuda. Half the goods that we consume, they come from Trinidad and Tobago. And in many instances, we can get them in the United States cheaper, but we have chosen to buy them from Trinidad and Tobago, and to eliminate the duties and taxes to make the goods more competitive coming into Antigua and Barbuda. And let's face it, we have not had a lot of benefits from the Eastern, the OECS union, and from CARICOM. And I'm not making a case against them. What I'm just saying here, I'm making a case that the little benefit that we get as a nation, no one should envy us and to try and undermine us to the extent that they will displace our aviation sector and to create further hardships to the people of Antigua and Barbuda. And that's one of the major challenges that we have here too, because LIAT is a significant contributor to the gross domestic product of Antigua and Barbuda, and there's going to be significant fallout, because anyhow you look at it, even if it's a scaled down LIAT, is going to result in significant economic problems in Antigua and Barbuda. We're going to lose maybe a good 3-4% of GDP. And when you look at the costs associated with the liquidation, there's going to be a significant amount of debt that we'll have to take on. We can see, for example, that Antigua's liability could be as high as $100 million.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Mustn't forget the bop.
I see you like bop too.
If I'm cleaning the garage, I need bop.
One bop for the home and one for the office.
Bop insecticide, preferred for its proven performance. Bop's fast-acting, long-lasting. Bop stops both flying and crawling insects. Get serious. Get Bop.
Like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/ramsupermarket. Follow us on Twitter, www.twitter.com/ramsupermarket. And subscribe to us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/ramsupermarket.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
You're tuned to Win FM 90.9. We do, of course, beg your pardon for that interruption. Slight technical glitch there. There you had it, the interview with the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Gaston Browne, speaking frankly, in my opinion, about Liat and what he would like for Antigua and Barbuda. Let's go to the phone lines and hear from this caller. Call you on the air, and a very good morning to you. Good morning, caller. All right, that caller seems to be a little shy. Our numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Good morning, you're live on Voices.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Backus.
Yes,
and good morning
good morning.
to the listeners.
Good morning to you, man. How are you doing?
And so, I'm leaning heavily on Miss Henny to call in and give her perspective on this whole issue, because she usually gives some good insights. And so I'm making a clarion call for her to call in and give her bits on this issue. Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask you about your thoughts as well, man. You gone already?
I feel like a bailout for Liat is a bailout for Antigua. I don't know if you remember in the past, there was a CEO who came in, and some of the measures that he proposed was a cut of the employees. And everybody knows that the majority of the employees for Liat are in Antigua, and so there was a big pushback and he lost the job. And so for me, like I said, a bailout for Liat is a bailout for Antigua. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, caller. All right, the call is straight to the point, short and sweet. A bailout for Liat is a bailout for Antigua and Barbuda. Now, what are your thoughts? The Liat conversation continues. On the one hand, there is no argument that you need to have air travel in the Caribbean. Many countries are separated by water and need to have an air bridge. Yes, you may have ferries, you may have boats, but you still want to have air service. Let's go back to the phone lines. Call you on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Backus.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you.
And how are you today?
Well, giving thanks. How are you doing?
We all have to. We all have to give thanks for life. The sun is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Let me say, it is unfortunate that regional airlines have to be going through such, ups and downs over the years. But I think it was physically prudent when probably our nation, our prime minister, our government was asked to get on board to really help to really bail out the airline. It was physically prudent that we refrained from such, because in my view and in the view of the general public and the taxpayers of St. Kitts and Nevis, we would have been like throwing money down the cracks. It has proven so. And so there are pundits that are out there and would have seen from we refraining from coming on board. There has been somewhat of a loggerhead between St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda. And I listened to Mr. Gaston Brown just now, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and their reference. We do make reference. And for the past, leading up to the election, our Prime Minister made reference of Antigua and Barbuda. And it was like something that, persons took on and saying, oh, he should have never said that. But there are always reference would be made in a comparative analysis aspect of comparing certain islands in terms of whatever facilities, whatever institutions they might have, whether it is suitable for it to remain here or repatriated to another region and, a state within the CARICOM. And so reference will always be made. But it was physically prudent. Not to say that our Prime Minister, our St. Kitts and Nevis should not get on board, because we do benefit from it. And I disagree with a caller to another program yesterday on this program that said that Petitions and Division has been somewhat like being target. I think it's the poor mismanagement or the poor mismanagement of the company on a whole. Because it's not the Petitions and Divisions that would be in Antigua for 5 and 6 hours, 7 hours sometimes, waiting on transit. And so I would not really go there to say that we were being targeted, because other nationals has been suffered the same fate. But I wish to have said that unless and until, I don't want the regional airlines to go down, because it's serving a purpose. But I could say that the regions, the governments in the regions can get together and have different ministers play different roles. Just like how they will rotate, CARICOM head of chair and the like, and OEC as head of chair. And I am bidding for my Prime Minister to be the finance minister of LEAT. He has proven that he knows what financing is. And that's the only way LEAT will rebound. My Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, as physical prudent as he is, he will turn LEAT around. Unless we're not going to be pouring our taxpayers' money down in LEAT. I'm so sorry. And it's sad, because we need to travel. Thanks for listening.
Yes, man. Thank you very much for your contribution. All right, so LEAT very much in the news. A little later on, we will play for you what another Caribbean leader had to say about LEAT. We have excerpts from a presentation made by Mr. Ralph Gonzalez, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He was very frank. He gave numbers to support his position that LEAT is insolvent. So we'll see what we can share with you when we come back for the second half of the program. In the meantime, we're taking your calls at 466-0989, 762-0989. And of course, we have our overseas numbers as well. 718-285-6984, 305-921, 4619, 0333-344-0065. And those numbers are on our website at www.winnfm.com. Back to the phone lines we go. Call you live and on the air, and a very good morning.
Same to you, my brother.
Yes, man.
All right now.
Giving thanks, my brother. Giving thanks. How are you?
Thanksgiving not in order. Doing the same. No. Okay, let me catch up on some things. This opening up of the regional, opening up for the borders for regional, interaction. I agree with that, Somebody, even though I agree with it, somebody they say, our honorable PM not doing so is short-sightedness. But it don't have to be, it don't have to be short-sightedness. It can be otherwise because, because of what go on globally, and the Caribbean is part of the global village. So, even though we agree that you should be opening up for regional, interaction, it don't have to be short-sightedness on the honorable PM. Let me catch me head there. The other issue we want to raise is yesterday we didn't make a point towards the Haitian that was in our midst, the treatment they get in different areas, for joining that, because of the story, our black story, our total black story as a people, And we have to always keep that unison no matter what go on, even though we have different zones that leave us in different plantation lands. But something I didn't mention is me here said they're going to target the people them who rescue these people and who they kind of put them up. Me ask the administration to reconsider that, Yeah, I mean, we don't know what Haiti people go through in all over the world. And if some people in a keys rescue them and make sure them all right, whether money involved, but they do it out of love. Believe them people there. No target them people and no bring them people and put them people in the court and all them thing there. We don't know the story about the Haitian brothers and sisters. So if we got a certain sector, if they live in keys, me to secure them too. Just like that. Because we know the story go. We know how the black story go, especially when it comes to our brothers and sisters from Haiti, from them time till now. So we have to do everything within our power to make sure, we turn that around. Turn it around completely with one people. Them scatter after them journey across the Atlantic and we come from one continental zone. And we always remember that we have to keep that on the forefront. Some point they make about make a point about the lack of unity. Yes, we agree with that. But the conspiracy from other race. It deep and a lot of things where we feel say we just click a finger up. No, because it's all part of the conspiracy to keep me divided too, up to the time because they know say, from unison come, that's it, That is it, from you have black unison, fundamental black unison, that's it. They can't do us nothing for me have that unison. So the conspiracies are part and parcel of the conspiracies to keep us divided. Politically, all them to keep us divided. Because anytime we come together, that's it, And we have to remember saying, somebody they say, well, they just talk about the reason they go and talk about the black and black killing. Yes, we agree to that, but we're not unique in this. You got other races that kill off one another too. You see it? And then now, because of who he is, in making that comparison, they bring me back to the point that because of who he is within the scheme of things. Remember, all of the races come from me, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, We is the original father and mother of all of the races. So, within the scheme of struggles on the earth of all the races, our struggle, we get the biggest fight because we is the original owners of earth. We are the children of the cradle of civilization. And that's the naked truth. So therefore, our struggle becomes a very tough struggle amongst the struggles of other races. Because almost every other race a target we. All of we a target ourselves. So we're in a very serious situation, but nevertheless, victory is certain. Victory is certain. Final victory is certain. We're not doomed. The situation with us is not a doom one. We're going to get over this. Bob Marley sings and many more will have to suffer, many more will have to die. We know about all of that. But we are going to come out. Gold and diamond be when they take them from the original state and then carry them to the process, and then after the process them don't go to you see how nice them look. You know them process there, my brother?
Yes, man.
We are at that we are got you.
All right, good talking to you, my brother. I've got to go now. I've got a headline news coming up. But when I come back for the second segment of the program, God willing, I'm going to play a little bit of what a Haitian brother had to say to me this morning. He doesn't want his name called, but he wanted to say a few things. I'm going to play this when I get back for the second half of Voices. But right now, we got to make way for the headline news, and that's coming right up right now.
You found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tilly Walwyn, a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB, live, love, be.
lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
From adult suffrage and elections in 1972 to elections in June 2020, the people of Anguilla have gone to the polls to elect their representatives. Monday, 29 June, Anguilla offered electronic voting machines with a master computer producing the results. There is no counting of ballots manually. The results are in and a new government is installed. Tuesday morning, Win FM 98.9 spoke to program manager of Radio Anguilla, Mr. Keatstone Graves.
The Anguilla elections have seen the ushering in of a new government, the Opposition Anguilla Progressive Movement, being successful in Monday's general election, winning 7 of the 11 electoral seats in the Anguilla House of Assembly. The biggest shock or defeat, if you like, of the evening was the incumbent premier, Victor Banks, losing to a 27-year-old former Miss UK and Miss World contestant, Deanne Kentish Rogers. Mr. Banks, having served in government parliament for over 40 years, suffering a shocking defeat, not unexpected given the conditions of this election cycle, but that by far was the most surprise result of the evening. We now have the Anguilla Progressive Movement headed by Dr. Lorenzo Webster, a top medical professional who spent quite a bit of time in the United States, in Florida to be more specific. He's now taken over the reins of government here in Anguilla. So the APM, the Anguilla Progressive Movement, winning 4 of the district seats and 3 seats from the island-wide candidates list. So this year we had a change in the electoral format where you had the districts, the 7 electoral constituencies, and for the first time going into the all-island constituencies where 4 candidates were vying for those 4 positions in an expanded Anguilla House of Assembly. Previously, 7 seats in Anguilla House of Assembly. That has now been expanded to 11 members, and in fact, Anguilla will now have 5 ministers in government under this new system. They've done away with the nominated members, an archaic, old-fashioned style of governance that has been done away with, and everyone that participates in House activities are now elected officials sitting in the Anguilla House of Assembly.
So, Kit, what were some of the election issues and how were the polls conducted with the COVID-19 realities?
Well, the main issues for this election certainly jobs, the economy, and some promises that were made by the outgoing Anguilla United Front administration on the outgoing premier, Victor Banks. They'd had a 15-point program when they came in 2015, and the populace here felt that they did not keep any of those promises to turn around the economy, job creation. Added to that, we had Hurricane Irma in 2017. They got some aid money from the British government, which many felt they should use long before the election of 2020. Those funds were sort of held back. It was the feeling of many persons, right, to boost their chances in the election. Added to that, you had COVID-19 coming into the picture, where the ports were closed and still remain closed. The major hotel, Anguilla is heavily dependent on the hotel sector. All the major hotels have been closed, a number are out of work. So that just added to the misery of the people. There was also the question of secrecy. There was some sense, some persons also accused the government of corrupt practices, one of which, and another particular area of concern, Presidencia, had to do with Hurricane Irma, when some $800,000 was spent in rentals for the ministers of government during that time, and the outgoing government was not able to live down that. That was certainly thrown around throughout the campaign program. But certainly the economy and job creation was a big factor in all of this, with a number of persons out of work. Stimulus package that they would have expected has been very small or very minuscule, and number of school leavers coming out as well. That didn't help the cause of the government. But generally, the economy was the main cry, or lack of an economy, lack of any activity, economic activity in the Anguillan society, and that did not play well for the outgoing government. The opposition seized on that, and they campaigned quite heavily on that, the state of the economy.
Veteran Caribbean broadcaster and journalist, program manager of Radio Anguilla, Keith Stone Graves.
Nevis is not getting the percentage shares that were agreed on in the Charlestown Accord, and there is urgent need for talks to rectify that situation. That's the expressed position of Premier Mark Brantley, the leader of the Concerned Citizens Movement and head of the Nevis Island administration. The accord was designed as the platform, the foundation for bringing the three-party team unity together, according to Premier Brantley.
There have been issues that have bedeviled the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis over the years. And one of the fundamental issues was the sharing of resources. And the Charleston Accord sought to address that, sought to ensure that the talents that were available in Nevis were unleashed for public, for development, national development as well. We have made good progress, for example, in the areas of foreign affairs, the fact that Nevisians are now participating in diplomacy, a role that they had been hitherto denied. And I take great pride that as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have shepherded that particular aspect where Nevisians, since 2015, and for the first time in the history of the country, are ambassadors and working in the diplomatic corps at home and abroad. So that has been one thing that we have seen in terms of tangible difference. Nevisians represented now on all national boards. That is also a tangible difference. And we have seen Nevis and Nevisians getting a better share of the national resources that flow from the Citizenship by Investment program.
However, Premier Brantley says what was promised in the Charlestown Accord has not been fully delivered, and he wants to see that happen.
I, however, have been on record saying, and I continue to say, that the full rigor of the Charlestown Accord has not yet been implemented. And that is something that I have already telescoped to the Prime Minister has to be done, and done early in this term, that we have to give full rigor to the terms of the Charlestown Accord, particularly as they relate to the sharing of resources from the Citizenship by Investment program. Those resources continue to be lopsided in terms of the share that goes to our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts compared to what comes to the island of Nevis. And so while Nevis is getting more than it has ever received in the history of the country, we know that we are not getting what was agreed in terms of the percentage shares. And that has now to be a matter of urgent discussion and resolution between the NIA and the federal government. And I believe the Prime Minister has already signaled his willingness to sit and to resolve those issues. And so the Charlestown Accord continues to be the basis of our engagement, and we will continue to engage on that basis with our counterparts on St. Kitts. The Charlestown Accord was intended, as I said, to be the foundation, the basis on which we would engage among the three parties and between both islands.
Premier Mark Brantley speaking at his most recent press conference last Thursday.
Police are reporting that Ezra Mills of Keon was the individual who was seriously injured in Sunday's accident in the mentioned area. According to law enforcement officials, incident occurred at about 1 p.m. on June 28 and involved motorcycle PB 5364, which was being driven by Mills, and motorcar PA 4070, which is owned by Adrian Rodriguez and was being driven by Aston Richards of Keon. Police said Richards had moved off from a parked position and was heading towards the Bastille direction, and Mills was heading in the opposite direction when the two vehicles collided. Mills sustained serious injuries to the hand and was transported to the J. France General Hospital, where he underwent surgery. Investigation into the matter are ongoing.
A more health-conscious tourism sector, that's the kind of tourism Prime Minister Timothy Harris wants to see going forward. The Prime Minister says the various sectors involved in tourism will have to take this on board. He made reference to the hospitality and hotel sector and how they should operate post-COVID-19.
So we are looking at a new, vibrant kind of tourism with new product offerings. We are looking at, again, how we can bring back more of our heritage tourism into play as we add to safe areas in which visitors can be engaged, because safety is going to become much more prominent in the new engagements necessary for tourism. We have to look again at skill sets, even in our hotels. Those that are serious about the service, they're going to have on board full-time nurses and doctors and call. They're going to have to reserve particular areas in the odd event somebody falls sick. How are you going to provide quarantine and other support? So it's a whole lot of issues now that confront us, and we want to be out front with respect to training and awareness.
The Prime Minister has also been talking about a new quarantine facility to deal with future pandemics.
Going forward, we are going to invest in a quarantine facility. Because clearly, even with the discussions we have had tonight, we now know that that is a significant lack for any country, because we cannot rely over any long period of time on the honor system, which is what the home quarantine turned out to be. You were relying on people to be sensitive to the fact that there was a significant threat and that they would behave themselves well. They will stay at home. They will not invite over friends, and so on and so on. And we saw in several instances that did not work. And therefore, the experience has taught us that you have to have a place where you can put them compulsorily, and that place has to be managed by state official. It has to have the relevant amount of security people to keep peace and to ensure that those who should be in are in fact in, and no visitors are allowed. And the country found itself without that. We therefore had to engage in significant expenditure using hotel facilities in order to hold persons, which was a requirement, in quarantine and in isolation for extended period of time, 14-day window.
Dr. Harris was speaking on the government program Leadership Matters. Another such program is scheduled to be aired Tuesday evening.
Police are investigating an armed robbery of a supermarket in Newtown that reportedly occurred at 6:30 Sunday, June 28. Police say investigations have revealed that two masked men armed with what appeared to be knives entered the establishment and demanded money. One of the men removed the cash pan from the register and they fled the scene with an undisclosed sum of money. No one was physically hurt during the robbery, according to a police release.
CNC3 News. Second Caledonia residents set debris on fire and blocked roads in their community to protest the police killings of 3 men on Saturday.
They insist the shootings were murder.
Relatives of the men of one of the 3 men, Israel Clinton, believe he was a target because of legal action that he took against police officers after they allegedly beat him.
Cameraman Michael Ramsing and reporter Otto Carrington tell us more.
Confrontation between Morville residents and the police today. The community of Second Caledonia on edge after police killings of 27-year-old Israel Clinton, 44-year-old Noel Diamond, and 43-year-old Joel Jacob. The residents claim Diamond and Jacob were in Clinton's Nissan Tida vehicle to go to the neighborhood liquor mart on Saturday as they were celebrating Jacob's birthday when police stopped the vehicle and shot them dead. Resident Steve Griffith says residents feel they are being attacked by the police. He claims this is the 6th person police have killed in the area recently.
We want to know if that war they're fighting against we, more of our people. They're killing me by the numbers, innocent people. Why they doing that? We run, they kill me. We pop we on, they still killing me. What are doing that for?
The protest made its way to the Lady Young Road and then to the spot of the shooting. The residents followed the actions of Jacob, who was seen in this CCTV video coming out of the car before he was shot. The residents say their protest action is justified and they want the Commissioner of Police to investigate.
And the people want justice. Gary Griffith, the people want justice. The Honorable Prime Minister of this country, the people want justice in 2nd Caledonia. Men died in that vehicle and they were innocent.
The protest escalated when Inspector Roger Alexander arrived. He came to let the residents know he was not part of the shooting. He admitted had the MOVA police officers been on the scene, they would have been able to identify the men in the car. Inspector Alexander told residents that the police will ensure justice is served and the residents will get full accountability.
I just came from a meeting and I want each and every person here and the family members to rest assured
justice will be served.
That justice will not only be served, but you all will have a total account of what took place here on Saturday.
Thank you.
Officers of the Police Complaints Authority were also on the scene of the shooting. But this did not quell the angry residents as they took their action further and blocked parts of the Eastern Main Road in the vicinity of MOVA Junction.
This is serious Trinidad and Tobago.
But the family of Israel Clinton, who they say is a father of 3, has a lawsuit against the police service for another incident. They believe he has been a target of police officers since they allegedly beat him 6 years ago. The autopsies of the 3 men were conducted today. Residents say they vow to continue their protest. Otto Carrington, CNC3 News.
Meanwhile, the police commissioner is debunking speculation that the officers involved in Saturday's police killings were suspended.
He told CNC3 News this afternoon that that is not the case.
The commissioner says the police service bought 180 body cameras and he's not sure if these officers were wearing any. He added that the vehicles did have dash cameras, but they were facing the opposite direction.
Commissioner Griffith says the investigation is still active and officers from the Professional Standards Bureau and the Police Complaints Authority are conducting inquiries. Well, as tensions escalate, Attorney at Law Om Lala is recommending a swift investigation to help bring some calm to the MOVA community. Now, while the police have given their version of the story, Lala says a video that emerged over the weekend cast uncertainty about what exactly transpired on Saturday.
The fact is, there apparently were witnesses around, and that's why a swift investigation would be required. One wouldn't want to comment or come to a conclusion based on that video footage alone. I think what is required is an investigation and taking statements of the people who were in the vicinity to see whether or not that video is corroborative of anything.
Lala says the incident cannot be divorced from what is happening in the United States as the world has changed its expectations for the conduct of police officers. Well, the Commissioner of Police has indicated that no officer has been suspended, and Lala says it would be premature to do that.
If there's some type of overwhelming evidence, there's justification to suspend officers. But where there is uncertainty and an investigation, a swift investigation or a preliminary investigation is required, only then the officers should be suspended or put on leave.
This is Al Jazeera.
Now, the UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson says Britons cannot continue to be, in his words, prisoners of the coronavirus crisis. He's outlined his vision for boosting the devastated economy after the pandemic. Now, the full roadmap will only be unveiled next week, but he says it focuses on attracting investment, not cutting spending.
We must work fast because we've already seen the vertiginous drop in GDP, and we know that people are worried now about their jobs and their businesses, and we're waiting as if between the flash of lightning and the thunderclap, with our hearts in our mouths, for the full economic reverberations to appear.
Well, there are fears that unemployment in the UK could rise to levels not seen since the 1980s in the wake of this pandemic. Al Jazeera's Lawrence Lee brings us the story of the British town with the second highest unemployment rate in the country. He reports from the Rhondda Valley in South Wales, where there are now more than 60 people chasing every single job.
Every shuttered shop, every collapsed business tells a story of lost hope. There's barely a soul around. Waleed hasn't had a single customer all day, so he's closing early.
If no customer, closing down the shop. Always. But the council gotta help us give it in grants for 3-4 months. This is okay. After that, if you know, lose everything. Everybody lose the job.
The Rhondda Valley used to be thriving. The largest coal seam in Britain led to the villages being built around the mines. But it's all been gone for 40 years and the communities are stranded. There are now 63 people chasing every job here. It's the second highest unemployment rate in the entire UK. Boris Johnson's government was elected on an express promise to what it called level up, provide vast amounts of financial support to the left-behind communities around the UK like this. And that was in December, before the virus even came here. All that's done is to massively amplify enormous problems that were already there. Many of these places don't even have a railway line connecting them to the big cities. But even if that's what the government's idea of infrastructure spending looks like, it's directly at odds with what the Rhondda says it really needs, which is a new, sustainable local economy to replace the one that disappeared.
We've suffered in the past where jobs have been created by large companies who've come in and taken grants and exploited low-wage labour and then up sticks and left as soon as the economic conditions changed. If we were able to invest in people owning their own businesses in the form of cooperatives, people actually owning the means of production, then they're more likely to stay in these communities. And I see no reason at all why government can't be investing in that way now.
And what will Johnson do to immediately replace all those jobs lost in the first half of this year? Big infrastructure plans take years to get off the ground.
If you want economics to represent a kind of diverse, decentralised and inclusive Britain, then you have to do something other than just spend money on projects. It's all about ensuring communities can be sustainable, can thrive, and people can find prosperity in every part of every kind of community in every city in every region of the UK, and that goes a long way beyond pouring concrete.
The economic situation in places like this is so dire that arguably anything is better than nothing. But if what's on offer is something like a new railway line to get people out, it isn't the same as finding ways they can stay. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, in the Rhondda Valley.
This is the Carib Update News Service. I'm Wendy Chateau reporting. A new premier to take office in Anguilla after people there voted out Victor Banks. This is the big story we're tracking this hour on the AM edition of Newsbreak for Tuesday, June 30, 2020. Details of this and more straight ahead. Now for the details. Medical doctor Ellis Lorenzo Webster is set to become the next premier of Anguilla Tuesday after his Anguilla Progressive Movement won an impressive 7-4 victory at the polls Monday. The other 4 seats went to Anguilla United Front, which had formed the government for the last 5 years. Among the casualties in the elections was the outgoing Premier Victor Banks, who lost his District 4 seat to 27-year-old newcomer Deanne Kentish-Rogers, a former Miss UK Universe athlete and now lawyer. Webster himself won his Island Harbour District 1 seat, defeating Pam Webster, who as an independent candidate became opposition leader in the last parliament after she alone won a seat against a then Anguilla United Front rout. The Anguilla Progressive Movement was formed a year ago, but it was largely an offshoot of the Anguilla United Movement of former Chief Minister Hubert Hughes. Hughes' son, Hayden, is among the APM candidates who won a seat in the House of Assembly. For the first time, voters were also able to vote for 4 island-wide candidates in addition to those in the 7 districts. The APM won 3 of those 4 seats, including the 28-year-old Quincia Maria Gums and another young candidate, Kyle Hodge, a young entrepreneur. The third winner was Ken Hodge, a longtime public servant and one-time director at Radio Anguilla. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced the new COVID pre-testing requirements for visitors to Jamaica from high-risk U.S. states. At a press conference at the Jamaica House on Monday, Holness said as of July 10, people visiting Jamaica from Florida, New York, Arizona, and Texas must upload the results of their COVID test to the Visit Jamaica website before their landing may be approved. The test must not be older than 7 days before the date of travel. According to Holness, Jamaica has to implement the measure as it prepares to welcome more people to the island. He says the country is now expecting 22 flights a day with 1,680 passengers. Other people returning to the island will be screened at the airport. They will also be expected to complete testing there and to remain at home until the results are made available. Haiti has recorded 70 coronavirus COVID-19 cases over the past 24 hours, the first time the country has recorded less than 100 new cases for nearly a month. The figures released by the Ministry of Public Health come as the country prepares to reopen the Toussaint Louverture International Airport on Tuesday. According to the ministry, a total of 5,847 people have tested positive for the virus since the first case was detected on March 19. It said 3 new deaths have been recorded, bringing the total to 104. This is Newsbreak from the Carib Update News Service. In more news, Dominica ends its curfew and state of emergency Tuesday. The measures have been in place as part of the efforts to curb the spread of the coronavirus when it expires on Tuesday. Dominica had recorded 18 cases of the virus that was first detected in China last December and blamed for the deaths of 502,000 people and infecting 10.2 million others worldwide. Health Minister Dr. Irvin McIntyre said despite the decision to lift the curfew and state of emergency, citizens should continue to follow the various health guidelines put in place to stem the virus as Dominica reopens its borders sometime in July. Jamaica's Minister of Justice, Delroy Chuck, has apologized unreservedly for the remarks he made during a discussion of the issue of sexual harassment at a sitting of the Joint Select Committee on the Sexual Harassment Bill last week. Chuck told the committee that victims of sexual harassment should either report the matter within the 1-year time frame or forget about it. But he came under criticism from sections of the population after the comment was made on Thursday, with some indicating that he should have stepped down as Minister of Justice. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has ordered the European Union's ambassador to leave the country within 72 hours. Isabel Bruhunt Pedrosa's expulsion came hours after the EU placed sanctions on 11 Venezuelan officials. They were sanctioned for acting against the National Assembly headed by opposition leader Juan Guaido. Mr. Guaido declared himself interim president last year but has failed to remove Mr. Maduro. The opposition leader has the backing of the EU and the US. These are some of the top stories from around the Caribbean this hour. This has been Newsbreak from the Carib Update News Service, the Caribbean's newsroom. Reporting this hour, I am Wendy Chateau.
That was the Win FM Headline News, brought to you by KDP Enterprises, Caribbean Alliance, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading, The Grange.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. To a lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a local reputation and service or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
This is your local weather forecast brought to you by Sweet Cane. Local weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow, Wednesday, 1st July. Synopsis: available moisture could trigger some shower activity during the morning period today. However, an approaching wave could increase the chances of showers across the area from tonight going into tomorrow morning. Today's weather: partly cloudy with a 50% or moderate chance of showers before midday. Tonight's weather: partly cloudy with a 60% or moderate chance of showers after midnight. Winds east at 13 to 28 kilometers or 7 to 15 knots. Seas not exceeding 1.5 meters or 5 feet. Today's sunset 6:49 p.m. Tomorrow's sunrise 5:41 a.m. This has been your local weather forecast, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Brought to you by Sweet Cane.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Glo's new combo plan, the people's plan.
Combo. Got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Glow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, Glow, come combo me.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause with Glow combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Glow got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Glow.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome now to the second segment of Voices on WinFM 98.9. Our phone numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We also have some overseas numbers for you, 305-921-4619, 718-285-6984, 0333-344-0065. Those numbers are on our website, www.winnfm.com. And we have an open mic today. What's on your mind? Give us a call. On the earlier segment of the program, we did play for you what was said by the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda about Liat. And we have lined up now an excerpt from an interview done by the Prime Minister of Vincent and the Grenadines, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonzalez. And that's coming up. He had more to say on Liat as well, and he was giving it by the numbers.
We had a meeting with I chaired a meeting on Saturday with the three other major government shareholders, that is to say Antigua, Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we had an agenda with 4 items. I got a report from the board of directors and the management on the critical financial position of Liat. I got a recommendation from the board of directors, and particularly in the issue concerning winding up or liquidation, and taking the decision for a general meeting of all the ordinary shareholders of the company to consider a resolution for the winding up the solution of the company. Now, the truth is this: since Liat was having problems before 2017, as we all know, but the hurricanes in 2017 put Liat in a tailspin, and into 2018, remember, we lost millions of dollars because you couldn't go to several countries. You couldn't go to Dominica. You couldn't go to Anguilla. You couldn't go to St. Martin. You several places.
Yeah.
So the schedule was gravely disrupted. It lost a lot of money. And then in 2019, so 17 and 18 were very bad years. In 2019, it lost about 14 million EC dollars. Well, that was recovery of sorts from the hole in 2017 and 2018. And then COVID hit in 2020. And over the period with COVID, we have lost about $35 million. It's a big sum of money.
Prime Minister, you said we mean Liat has lost. You mean Liat?
Liat.
Okay, all right.
Liat.
Okay.
Liat. I'm talking Liat.
All right.
Sorry,
good.
I didn't mean St. Vincent.
Well, I just wanted to, yes.
In accordance, if you take, the management sent for us their salaries for May, June, and July, and overdue payroll liabilities, because even though they laid off about 500 workers, they kept on a staff about 168 across the network. Then for maintenance of the aircraft, insurance, repatriation of staff and health insurance coverage, and rental of office equipment, utilities, that number comes up to about 10.8 million EC dollars. These are, and then you have about the paid bookings as at May 2020. Liat had paid bookings of $4.3 million outstanding. That's US dollars. That's over $10 million. Now, those are things which the liquidator will have to deal with. But severance payment in total for all the workers as per the existing collective agreements, which is not necessarily what the law of Antigua will specify, but they're dealing I'm talking the law of Antigua in relation to insolvency. Number may be smaller, but if you're dealing with just the existing collective agreements, you're looking at $83.9 million in severance payment. And for the people who have vacation pay, and for all the countries is another $10 million in vacation pay. So you're talking about 93.9, call it $94 million. Now, of course, the Liat is insolvent, so the Liat doesn't have any assets to pay anybody anything. You see the problem?
Yeah.
Now, notice would have to be given to the creditors also, and so that they can come to the meeting when the meeting is held.
Okay.
With the requisite notification.
Mm-hmm.
But there are pre-liquidation costs, not dealing with the severance payments, because there are some people who are already, severance is already, due because of the length of time now. Since they have been laid off, they are constructively taken as though they are severed. But 3 of the planes, which normally say Liat owns them, Liat doesn't own them because the bank owns them, Caribbean Development Bank. They have a priority charge on them. And the rest of the planes are leased. And in due course they will have to send them back, unless of course a new entity which arises leases them from the lessors. As far as St. Vincent and the Grenadines is concerned, I'm very interested in making sure that we have to make relevant connections now.
Yes.
And connections, particularly Trinidad, Barbados, the Windward Islands go right up to Antigua. And I would expect that in the northern part, there'd be aircraft operating out of Antigua to make some sort of connections. It's going to be problematic, but fortunately we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines 2 airlines. We have one Caribbean which has served us well during this period. One Caribbean has 2 SABs, which is 30 seats each, and a 19-seater. They have a 19-seater, so they have available 79. They have a 1900D Beechcraft, which is 19 passengers, and they have 2 SABs. So they have 30 and 30 and 19. There are 79 seats. And then we want to see what SVG Air has at its disposal. I know they operate Philadelphia Air 4, Twin Otters, and they have other aircraft. Twin Otter carries 19. So I'm focusing my attention on how what we can do to help these particular airlines in the circumstances. I'm having a discussion this evening with one Caribbean, and tomorrow I'm having a discussion with people from SVG Air. So as always, you would expect me to try to be ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Eh?
Yes, of course.
I'm not getting involved in arguments about if there's a new airline, regional airline, where it is to be located, what private sector should be involved, how state sector. I hear a lot of private sector people talking, I want to see where the money is now. Remember the numbers who wanted Leah to close down? And they will spring up. Well, I'm dealing with what I have right in front of me. I'm talking about 2 airlines owned here by Vincentians.
Prime Minister?
Yeah?
I didn't hear something. Did you say Liat is winding up?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's what we are. That's what the 4 major shareholders
have agreed.
Which we hold about 90-something percent, 92% of the shares are there. About the other shareholders who hold minuscule amounts, but you have to give them everybody notice now.
Yes.
To give the major creditors the notice too. Creditors as a whole. I want to see the liquidation process well underway and complete before I could talk about providing
replacement
money for any other source, take for instance, I have the data. I had asked the union leader for Liat had written to me and asked me, tell me they want a meeting, but because they're raising some of these issues, severance payment and the like, so I wanted to get the number. Well, we have 41 employees in St. Vincent, and the severance payment is 1.51. In fact, when I called him back, he was a little surprised that the money had reached so far. Of course, none of that they can have from Liat, because Liat doesn't have any money. And then, in terms of, there's another $400,000 in vacation pay, which Liat doesn't have either. No. I'll have a discussion. You have heard me say that repeatedly that the democratic state cannot be a bandit. I'm not going to go further than that. I can't tell you what, if anything, I'm going to offer the Liat workers. I make a general statement first.
Yes.
Because I don't want anybody to be taking any words that I'm saying, any creditors of Liat, to say that I am discriminating by saying that I'm going to help Liat workers, but I'm not going to help other creditors from St. Vincent with Liat. Maybe a small hotel, maybe a small restaurateur who Liat might owe money. You see what I mean? Once this process is about to begin, I have to be careful with my tongue.
Yes.
I'm sufficiently a lawyer.
Yes.
What I could tell you is that it is unlikely, highly unlikely, that any of these persons can get anything from Liat itself, because Liat doesn't have assets.
Yeah, it's solvent.
Yeah?
Yeah, we understand.
You know, so I see Gaston making the point, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. He has spoken quite expansively, and he has said that, I saw a report that he has said air transport is the only thing that we get out of the region. And he wants to maintain the Liat name. He wants to maintain, he wants up there to be the headquarters still. Creditors will have to take a haircut, including people who severance payment. I'm not going into those discussions, except to say I am not hung up as to what name is retained or anything like that. You heard that I say that I have in conversation with two companies. What is my objective? To get Vincentians and visitors to and from St. Vincent and the Grenadines to make their connections.
Going into conjecture.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm not leaving it to conjecture. I take into account the whole confluence of circumstances, or what you may call the conjecture.
Okay.
The conjuncture of circumstances.
Yes.
The conjuncture of circumstances.
Yes.
I'm not conjecturing. I want to make. I know I wasn't going to go there until it's either Pigeon or Lancelot remind me to go there.
And there you had it, the Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, on a radio program talking about Liat, explaining his position, looking to strengthen two airlines on the island. He's having discussions. He's made some comments as well about what the other Prime Minister, Gaston Browne of Antigua and Barbuda, had to say about Liat. So it's an unfolding story as it is. Let's go back to the phone lines. Call you live and on the air. Thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, I am not impressed with nothing Ralph Gonsalves said. Also, Gaston Browne. They are ones, and others is the cause of where Liat is today. And I'm going to show you a prime example. Look at Seabourn Airlines. They started out flying seaplane around St. Thomas and Croix, Puerto Rico. But look at them today. 31 aircrafts. Liat but what, 9? Liat been in existence before Seabourn. Liat got what, 700 employees? Airborne got 320 employees. The problem is the way Liat is structured. As long as you have these government officials running Liat, it will never work. And that's the main problem there. Look at Liat. Gene Holder been the chairman of the board for years. And Liat been experiencing problems after problems. And he remains at the helm. How could that be? Barbados said, well, we got the biggest chunk here, and he stayed. That's not the way to run a business. Antigua, they got a government minister on the board. St. Vincent got a banker. And these guys been there for years. But Liat failed. My point is, Seaborn get a chance right after American Eagle went out of business. All they had was the de Havilland Tornado. And the minute as that happened, they went to these banks and they get money to buy these aircraft you see coming into St. Kitts Nevis. And look at them. One hub, San Juan, and they fly throughout the region. Liat, they seem to got two hubs, one in Antigua and one in Barbados. 9 aircraft. They're flying in opposite directions with they don't even know where they're going. I mean, how could that be? Liat been around from immemorial, and they cannot get it right. These governments need to do what they have to do and get their hands out of the management operations of Liat cells. From what they're saying, there's no Liat. So whatever they plan to come with it, if they're going to fund it and leave it to professionals to operate it.
All right, caller. Thank you very much, man. Much appreciated. We've got some other callers on standby. Let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air, and good afternoon. All right, sorry about that. Do call back. I was trying to get you before you left. 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Those are our numbers. We go back to the phone lines. I hear from this caller. Call you on the air. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to you.
A question. What do you think would happen if all the government adopt a hands-off approach to Riyadh? Just hands off.
Is that a trick question?
No, I don't think so at all.
All right, good. So
from the looks of things,
before we can answer your question, we first have to begin with what is the purpose of Liat?
Exactly. Yeah.
We have to start there first. Liat, from my understanding, and this is a layman's understanding, I haven't done deep research, but I've been hearing stories about Liat for probably as long as you have. Liat basically was created to that the book written by Gene Holder, Air Bridge, basically is to actually provide a roadmap, for want of a better term, for the territories of the Caribbean. Lots of short stops, and there are linkages that are non-profitable but necessary for the development of the islands. What has happened with Liat is that successive, and I wouldn't blame Gene Holder or anybody else for what has happened to Liat, because many general managers were hired, did their very best and left, because the business plan for Liat always ran into trouble because Liat was never allowed to operate on a for-profit basis. It was basically a utility service. And the issue was, how do you finance a utility service? And the idea was that you'll have shareholder governments and some private enterprises as well. But then when it comes to mapping the routes now, which ones are making money, which are not, those who invested in Liat argue that we invested in Liat for a reason, because we want to be able to move our people and to have business coming into play. So based on that scenario, even if Liat right now is, to use the Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister's term, collapsed, the problems will remain in terms of what is going to be the model, what's going to be the financing. If you're going to have a utility service, it has to be funded largely by taxation. And with a heavy import of the need for people to have the international standards signed off by the U.S. and others, you're talking about heavy security at airports, lots of costs involved. So how will short flights actually make money? Can we have one hub, or do we have to have two hubs? So it's a convoluted way of trying to answer your question.
it's extremely complex.
It's a very complicated matter.
I would, and you're approaching it from the view that the islands absolutely have to get involved in airlift between them. Okay? And that's not necessarily so, I don't think. Right? I mean, to me, two things would happen. Either the private sector steps in, and sees the opportunities that exist, as they always do, or the individual governments would set up their local airlines to shuttle travelers to the existing hubs, like St. Martin and Puerto Rico and Antigua and Barbados, right? Unlike Gaston Brown, I don't think that it's inevitable that these smaller airlines that would prop up would fail. Okay, I think the respective governments will have to ensure that they don't. Otherwise, they will have to contend with a very angry public who demand better services and better connections. I mean, right now, Liat and Antigua, I think, pretty much the scapegoats and whipping boys, and we will have to find other scapegoats if Liat does not exist. And, of course, it's the local government who will feel the heat. Okay? There may not necessarily be new startups. After all, Winair and Cibone, as somebody mentioned, and a number of other smaller airlines exist, and they could step in to fill the void. So we don't have to worry about, I think, the provision of services between the islands. The question is it necessarily going to be cheaper and safer and overall better than the services that Liat provided in the past? Okay, I think we've been somewhat spoiled. We've come accustomed to Liat's fancy planes and service, and I suspect a lot of people will complain about the no-frills, cramped services offered by the smaller carriers. Okay, it seems as if people are going to stop traveling for fun anyway, and so air passenger traffic is likely to be down. So I don't think poor Liat stood much of a chance anyway to survive in the new environment. Okay, maybe what will happen is that we'll have a horde of airlines and a few failures before the best eventually bubble to the top, and maybe a whole different kind of Liat is created. Hopefully we don't have any crashes in the chaos, and the East Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority will be called on to monitor closely all these new airlines to make sure that the standards are maintained. But it's really unfortunate that the formula could not have been found to save Liat. It doesn't speak well for our confidence to manage our own affairs in the region if some external entity or interest have to come in to manage it for us. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much. We have another call in the line. We're going to go to the phone lines. Really welcome the calls and the discussions. One of the issues that I've learned was a part of the issue as well. What am I saying? One of the issues on the table with Liat is that Liat, like some utility services that you may be aware of, was not able to raise its prices as it saw fit. It was not able to pass on the true value of the ticket because it was subsidized by governments. And, of course, governments' taxes made up sometimes 40, 50, 60% of the ticket costs. So Liat was left with little room to increase prices again. Caller, you're live and on the air. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Backus, I really didn't mean to call back again, but...
No, you can call back anytime. You can call back anytime, man. Go ahead.
Mr. McMahon said something a while ago. Darren Matthew Ward interviewed Prime Minister Alan Shastany this morning and his program. You need to get your hand on that recording and play it for the people could hear the missteps that Leah made. And I agree with him 100%. That's what I call to say. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. I'll speak to my partner and see if I get the interview for you. I'll tell him what you ask. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Miss Henry, you know how many people calling here asking for you? Want to know, well, where is Miss Henry with her analysis and cross-examination? I don't know, man. You can't have to keep the audience waiting like that. They're going to leave the studio, man.
Well, I got to have legal cover, you know. Mouth could put you, mouth can't take you out, eh?
Well, that's why you got your mouth, you know. It's to put you in trouble. Anyway, you're live on the air, man.
Yes, anyway, good afternoon.
Good
to
afternoon.
All the listeners home
Good
and
afternoon.
abroad. It's great. It's a great day to be alive.
Every day.
Now, let me tell you, I have been studying this layer thing, you know, and COVID 1920 has done Antigua, St. Vincent, Dominica, and Barbados a favor. It has given them cover to declare Leah bankrupt. Plain and simple, you know. When you listen to the Prime Minister, I think he's saying Lucy talking about, you know, and Leah also march and the workers' severance pay. All of that is an excuse for bankruptcy because the Leah will be back. They might have well just said, plain out. We have declared bankruptcy. And because that is how Trump survived, you know. Trump had what, 11 or more bankruptcy? He opened something and not doing so well. He declared bankruptcy and he come back again. Leah, and I think Mr. Brown from Antigua, he needs somebody in communication, you know. He has the act of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. He's talking about people, he hoped that none of the other leaders want to, you know what I mean? Now, you're asking people to help, but you're letting it be known. Nobody come here and say you want the headquarters changed. And the workers, they better don't ask anything and take some compassionate, you know. Imagine you, Mr. Backer, the people earn it, you know. Litigious. Hope they're not litigious. And some compassionate. I said, wait, somebody need to tell this gentleman that the people could take legal action against him or against the company, and he is one of the cause because for years, decades, everybody saying, cut the labor supply, cut the number of workers you have in Antigua. He and previous government saying, oh, well, it is going to create unemployment in Antigua. So everything must be for Antigua. That is his only concern. He has contributed to it. He and his, said the Antiguan government, not him personally, right? They have contributed to the state of Leah. Even when Barbados tried to think, oh, Barbados actually own the majority of the shares, but Antigua is insisting that it must be headquartered in, all the planes must stay down there. You know, if they were thinking, if he and some others were thinking Caribbean-wise, they could have survived, you know. And this thing again with the taxes. He putting on, they putting on, everybody putting on. And everybody has, all of them have justifying causes why they must overtax the ticket. Well, a simple lesson in economics says supply and demand determine price. So when you go and put the price up high, the number of persons able to fly is reduced. You don't need a degree in economics to know that. So every time they carry up the price, they should have known. So I don't know where this lot of balling, but it late will be back. Don't let anybody fool you. This is just a cover to declare bankruptcy. So don't let him fool you. You don't think so, Mr. Backus? Have you thought about it that way?
I haven't, but I like to listen to you, Miss Henry. I think I learned from you, So I'll let you speak, and then I'll take some notes.
I listen to him, and I listen to the other one. Oh, he's going to get his planes to fly here, there, and there. They don't want to pay the people. And for those of you who don't know, these costs, these losses are calculated on the number of empty seats. Because sometimes they make people think, oh, we went out there and spend the money. Of course they make losses. You see, so they're trying it. Now, in the UK, the airlines asking is one way of asking, pressure. They're putting on pressure indirectly on the governments. Well, if Liat don't fly, if Liat don't come back, then how will your people move? Same thing in the U.S. I think it was some billions the other day they gave to Boeing. Billions, So, it's strategy. Sometimes we look at things like that. It's strategy. All this talk about Liat going down and Liat this and that, Liat that. They owe the CDB for the planes. So if I was a worker, I would have staked my claim on one of the planes. If they're so concerned, why they don't give the people they have bonds, right? Because Gaston Brown, for one, don't like to pay, He boasts about all the money he had and all the investment. And we in St. Kitts Nevis are still waiting for our money from National Bank. Why it never occurred to him when he was doing all that investment to pay us? I mean, they owe us almost, 60 million? He can't offer a penny. And then people saying, oh, St. Kitts shooting. St. Kitts should help to support. We gave, they cut us out. We can't go St. Thomas, can't go Anguilla. They carry you to Antigua and they have starved you. But it is selfishness on the part of Antigua. Selfishness. People say, no, one all get none at all, But Liat will be back. They will declare bankruptcy, get all the assets, this and that. Then they could always buy them back at a low price and fly again. All I'm saying, when they go to fly the next time, please reduce the price. If you reduce the price, more people will be able to travel. Plain and simple. All right, then.
Thank you very much, Ms. Henry. Much appreciated as usual. You raised a number of interesting issues there in terms of Liat. As we said, Liat, like some utility services, would love to raise the price of services, but successive general managers have had their hands tied. And, of course, governments need revenue to maintain the security and all the requirements of airports. And then, of course, we have several very good airports in the Caribbean. So it's not like you have one major airport and smaller airports. So those airports are pretty expensive. To the issue of National Bank, that was an issue, I think, of National Bank loaning money to a bank in Antigua. And there's some discussion as to what happens now. That's a story I think we need to follow up on Win FM. So I'll see what I can find out about that development. But I don't think Mr. Brown owes anybody money. Just to be clear, Mr. Brown doesn't owe anybody any money. A transaction between the banks is just that. It has nothing to do with Mr. Brown owing anybody money. So let's make that clear. In case Mr. Brown decides to give me a phone call later on this afternoon when Miss Henry gone home and so. All right, the time now, it's 17 minutes after 1 o'clock. We go back to the phone lines and hear from another caller. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon. All right, sorry we missed you. Do call back if you can. Caller, good afternoon. You're live and on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, Mr. Politics. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm here just hanging in.
All right.
I get a very difficult time to get on and voices at the time.
Man, I'm trying to make it easier for you, man. I have to work harder.
All right.
All right.
Mr. Backus, my concern with the Liat, I believe the Liat problem that is enough for the Caribbean and enough for the travelers in the Caribbean and different parts of the diaspora. Now, Mr. Backus, government pump money into Liat all the time and no improvement, nothing at all coming from them. And my suggestion to Liat that I believe the company to revamp and bring somebody else off the next airline company. Don't come with the name late. Because I believe the name don't contaminate with all kind of thing. And all kind of corruption don't went through that organization. So I don't think it will work anymore for the Caribbean. Now, I know that the people, the travelers in the Caribbean will suffer because of whatever situation they will get to do to get an airline back on stream. You understand? Because people got to travel to different various countries and all kind of things. But I believe that, Mr. Bacchus, with the situation with Liat right now, I don't believe he working for the ordinary man and woman in the Caribbean, the travelers them, and I do not believe that the name Liat will work. I believe that totally they need to find some other business, other company, and come with a name in the structure and call the airline whatever. I do not believe the name could work anymore. You always say, what done gone by the morning, can't come to the evening. And later, that's the service. Not so that they have done well in the past. Right? But this lending out money, give them money, pumping money into them, pumping money, and you see no improvement, nothing coming in stream. Barbados trying to take it over, Antigua, wherever, and nobody, nothing coming in stream. And I believe that taxpayers' money ain't going to be satisfied enough for how late running and bankrupt every minute. Mr. Bacchus, you are wonderful.
Yes, Mr. Paul, God bless you, man. Thanks for calling. I think another room for debate aspect of this whole discussion, and really it's a discussion about regional travel and regional air travel to be more precise. With COVID-19, and COVID-19 today marks the 6th-month anniversary of COVID-19, of official COVID-19, as the World Health Organization would define it. So today is the 6th-month anniversary, and COVID-19 has certainly, I tell you, some people can't remember what it used to be like before COVID-19. And one of the issues here is the issue of travel. Tourism being the lifeblood of the Caribbean, what does the future look like? What does the future look like? What is likely to happen? Well, some argue, Vincent Van der Poel, former Secretary General of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, he's arguing that regional travel may have to fill the breach for international travel in the short and medium term, because in a lot of Caribbean countries, the second, let's say Caribbean visitors are usually at number 2, ranked 2 overall in many of our Caribbean destinations. And chances are with improved regional travel, that number may even go up, and that may be what may sustain some economies in the short term. And that's an argument we can hear both sides of, or three sides of, a bit later on. Call you on the air. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, please.
Yes, how are you, man?
Yes, I'm doing fine, man. Well, how are you doing?
Yeah, well, I haven't been following the Liat thing that much, but the lady just came off, Miss Henry, that you call Miss Henry.
Yes.
Yeah, she offered a great, narrative there, man. Great analysis.
She's a star, man. She's a star.
To be honest, I don't really like the Prime Minister of Antigua. I don't really too much like his attitude, but, I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis, and a rift need to develop between St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua. They need to try to take care of that situation right now. But the unity is always the strength. And I don't think that Liat headquarters should stay in Antigua. I mean, whoever been running Liat for all these years is just like poor management, and they shouldn't be rewarded, bro. It might be time for headquarters to change to another location. They need to think about that, and the shareholders, they need to get the last say. I mean, Gaston Brown there in Antigua, he seems like he's trying to dictate, but, if Liat needs to collapse and come again, if that's what needs to be done, they need to think about that really seriously. But, it's maybe time for some new management, revamping of that whole organization. If they need to collapse Liat to come again, they just need to do that and think about the future.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution. Much appreciated. We go back to the phone lines. Call you on the air. Good afternoon. All right. Sorry, caller. Let's go to the phone lines again and see if we get someone else up. All right, we seem to be taking too long to answer you. So do call back, 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Tomorrow marks 6 months since WHO received the first reports of a cluster of cases of pneumonia of unknown cause in China. The 6 months anniversary of the outbreak coincides with reaching 10 million cases and 500,000 deaths. This is a moment for all of us to reflect on the progress we have made and the lessons we have learned, and to recommit ourselves to doing everything we can to save lives. 6 months ago, none of us could have imagined how our world and our lives would be thrown into turmoil by this new virus. The pandemic has brought out the best and the worst of humanity.
Yeah, that's the Director General of the World Health Organization, Adhanom Ghebreyesus, speaking Monday afternoon. Today is the day. That is the anniversary date, Tuesday, 30th of June. Call you on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, Gregory, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Yes, greetings in the name of Jesus Christ. I'm doing okay. Now, first of all, I would like to say the Liat problem, okay, is just a good example of what happens when government is in control of things or try to maintain things, try to prop up things, etc. That is just a good example of what happens. You're getting all kind of problems, your quality of service decreases, that sort of stuff. If we had our airlines that was operating in a true free market context with decrease in taxation, that sort of stuff, government regulations, that sort of stuff, you had private airports and that sort of stuff instead of government controlled airports, because there are places in this world where the airports are privately controlled, things would have been a whole lot better because of airlines, that sort of stuff, operating in a free market. But because this is not what we have, but instead we have a government-controlled thing, this is what you get when you have, because socialist policies which we are operating under in many cases, and this is one of them, where the airlines and so is concerned, socialist policies that do not work. They only destroy, they only hampers and hinders progress and development, innovation, inventions, that sort of stuff. And we have to move away from our socialist policies, which are against the Bible, and move to a free market capitalist context if we want to have a great airline system and that sort of stuff, which would be in the context of doing things the Bible way, going the free market way, minimizing taxes, government regulations, that sort of stuff. This is the answer to our economic, social, and so problems that we are having. It ain't no new management need. It ain't no new airlines or aeroplanes or jets or whatever that they need. That is not really the problem. The problem is the system that they're operating in, which is a socialist system based upon socialist policies instead of a free market capitalist system, and that they're not working under. And the capitalist way is the Bible way to go, and that's the only way that works. Okay, Mr. Backus.
Yes, thank you very much, Gregory. Well, I do thank you for your thoughts today. I have spoken to quite a few of the managers over the years, and I will tell you, Liat has had some very good managers, but it's what you're managing. It's what is the vision of the organization, where the resources coming from, who's paying for what. And that led to many managers after a while just stepping away and saying, that's it, I'm gone. Let's go back to the phone lines and hear from another caller. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, caller. You live?
Mr. Backus?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think, most of the callers, they've already said what I'm saying, but two things Liat has to look at. The fear is too high.
the taxes on the tickets, it's killing people. The governments, they need to sit down and review the situation. If they want the other governments them to put money into LIAT, they have to manage the institution, better than they are managing it right now. Because nobody wants to put money into a failing company. You understand? And I think the Prime Minister of Antigua, I don't know where he get all this power from in terms of LIAT, but I think he's getting away with too much. And if this is going to be his attitude, LIAT is not going to get anywhere. You understand? I mean, it is ridiculous sometimes. The prices you got to pay on LIAT to travel right in the Caribbean here, than against going to New York or Miami. And Mr. Bacchus, I can use Guyana as an example.
Yes.
I remember the last time I went to Guyana, my ticket was 3,100 and something EC, which is over 1,000 US. It's ridiculous.
And that's $200,000 there.
Right.
I hear you.
And I think if they lower the fare, more people is going to travel. And the government too, they got to take off some of these taxes. Yes, we know taxes, generate revenue, for your economy and, but the taxes that the government they're putting on, it's too high, man. It's too high. And, one thing before I go into Bacchus, what is coming back to haunt LIAT now? And, these Caribbean governments, especially the shareholders, when airlines come in to give LIAT competition, they frustrate the airlines, because they don't want them to compete with LIAT, so they don't give them landing rights and airspace rights and all the different rights, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So the companies get frustrated and then they pull out. So what is happening now is coming back to haunt these shareholders. That's my little bit, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, sir. You too. Thank you so much for calling, and have a great afternoon. Well, you can remember something called Red Jet. Yes, Red Jet. Red Jet had some experiences they can share with you, but it's a very difficult situation because governments are trying to have secure, state-of-the-art facilities, and they cost money to not only build but to maintain. That money has to come from somewhere, because you don't want to have equipment and ports that are not certified at the highest level. So you understand why the governments need to have revenue for those things. So where are they going to get the revenue from? They have to get it from somewhere. The discussion has to be about where that revenue ought to come from, because you can't have a dilapidated airport. You can't have a very poor security system. These days, there are some requirements if you want to be certified. And just the other day, you heard about the OECS Eastern Caribbean countries being downgraded from Category 1 to Category 2, and efforts are being made to deal with that. So it's a bit of being between a rock and a hard place. You've got to have certain standards, and those standards cost money. At the same time, you want to have cheaper travel to generate more money. So how you get that done, you're going to have somebody above my pay grade to help you with that one. But thank you so much for being a part of today's program. We wish you well, and do stay tuned to Win FM. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Flo, Essel Hospital and Company, and of course, it's time to say goodbye from Voices for today. I'm Clive Bacchus. Have a great afternoon.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, yes. Pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horswoods Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss this. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Carnival once again, baby. And you know the masters play the new style. It's just the way we play, baby. Got them bouncing like they crazy. GQ, Rodney Rascal, Sugar Bowl, Sister Sensia. Tell them that the masters got the new style of playing, baby. And we make the people bounce like them lose their mind. Carnival time. The escape posse say they ready now to jam. Caribbean posse say they waiting for this one. 11 months now we done gear up, tension done flare up between the bands. So run go tell them we not ease up when we come down. Carnival, it's just a new style, new style, new style. How the master banner play to make them people break away. New style, new style, new style. Got the master banner job to make them bounce and kick like that. Now new style, new style, new style. Run the rhythm, David House, so you gon' control escaping. Now new style, new style, new style. Let them know we now watch the face. Hey, how the masters bring the new style, baby. Watch you now. Hey, ready? You ready? Hey, hey, hey. Grandmaster's new style got the people bouncing like they're crazy. Grandmaster's new style got the people jumping like they. Everybody jump up. Wanna see your hands up. Everybody jump up. Sing this body jump up. Hey, hey, hey. Grandmaster's new style got the people jumping like they're crazy. Grandmaster's new style got the people bouncing like they're crazy. Everybody jump up. Wanna see your hands up. Everybody jump up. Wanna see your hands in the air now. Judy Live on. You don't know say that's how we roll. And we bring the new style. Mash up the whole of Escalade. Mash up the whole Caribbean. Channel Station massive and you know. St. Thomas massive. New York City ladies. There is no more anticipating. Cause we ready now to jam. Say we don't load up the system to butt down the tongue. Me find them coming from all over, from every corner, ready to jam. So tell them that we won't retire, whatever they require, we give what they demand. It's just a new style, new style, new style. That the masses banner play to make them people break away. New style, new style, new style. That the masses banner drop to make them people bounce like that now. New style, new style, new style. Run the rhythm, David House, so you don't control escaping now. New style, new style, new style. Tell them we don't watch no face, we just bring it. We got them bouncing up like that. Chico, think alive, you tell. Think alive, you tell.
I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin.